Hello and welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. A lot of stuff happened. Let's get stuck in right away. News number one are not a new topic. We do hear this in every bull market, but it has a certain significance this time. Matt Hugan, the investment chief by Bitwise, one of the ETF issuers and a perma Bitcoin bull on X, has announced in an interview and in a threat essentially that he is eager the Bitcoin 4-year cycle is dead. According to him, because of the increase in institutional adoption and the increase in Bitcoin treasury companies, in ETF buyers, and in ETF investors who also invest in pension funds and Roth IRAs and these kind of things, Bitcoin has seen a new purchasing power. Well, my personal opinion, again, I've heard this in every bull market since 2015, and Bitcoin has always proven to be different this time. Very suspicious. And in terms as if markets go, you will always see, of course, peaks and dips, depending obviously also on the economic outlook. However, Hugan has now time to see if his theory plays out. One argument, I think, which is very interesting from him, is that compared to 2018 and 2022, we are actually now seeing a different rate environment by the central banks. Back then, it used to be very aggressive. They would rake hikes. And this time around, it's more likely that they would drop the rates. We'll need to wait and see if his theory plays out. Second news are from legendary investor Dalio. With an interview with The Times, he was very conscious about Great Britain's decline in an economic outlook. He said that, in his opinion, there is just too much bad stuff going on. Too much debt raising up, too many pensions being not essentially filled up again, a huge gap in people who are not paying into these programs, and therefore also a weak pound. I personally have seen this, having lived in England. The outlook is not really positive. His take is people need to invest into hard assets. He's a very big gold bug and a Bitcoin bull. And he essentially said in the interviews that these are, next to potentially holding a little bit of cash to get through the day, the better strategies for investors in Great Britain. However, there is also one issue. In the UK, it's very much verboten to actually invest into spot Bitcoin directly, especially for institutions, and to also invest into the spot Bitcoin ETFs. They are not on track to be actually listed. So institutions have to use proxies such as MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, or other companies. If this interview helps out and someone in the UK in the government actually listens to Dalio, remains to be seen. But it's an interesting news take to see that he's very vocal about going for hard assets. And lastly, we also have some news out of the White House, where the Digital Assets Report, a 160-page piece, I would say a fill piece, dropped. And because there wasn't a lot of mention of Bitcoin or a reserve in there, it was very heavily focused on stablecoins and on digital assets. Bitcoin's price reacted quite poorly. At the time of recording, the price dropped to around $115,000. And I'm saying, like, who dropped? For most Bitcoin investors, this is a usual reaction now. And we did also see some hard sell-off pressure last week. However, nevertheless, it's actually not a good look if the White House has acknowledged that there will be a Bitcoin reserve, but is very, I would say, meticulous about not mentioning when they are going to launch it or what they are going to do with it. For now, we'll need to wait and see. But people at the White House, you got some explaining to do. And with that, we're at the end of This Week in Bitcoin. You know the drill. If you got questions, feedback, or just want to say hello, leave me a comment below. And I look forward to seeing you next week again.